But I wanted to ask Andrei, and in fact you Eddie, because your remarks, although they were not intended to do so, but they sparked a thought in my head. And that thought in my head is that as we meet here in Bled, others are meeting in China. There is a different order, if you like, in the making, right? And there's a love fest going on as we speak between Putin and Xi and Modi and several other mostly rather unsavory characters. And so it's not as if this conversation is happening in a vacuum. I mean, it's not as if we will have forever. That window will be closing, and it risks closing even sooner than 4 years unless we actually do speed up. And so, Andrei, I wanted to kind of perhaps come to you and ask you to reflect and kind of put this discussion within that broader geopolitical context. And also, what is it that can be done in order to send the message to our own populations, be it in member states or be it, Eddie, in candidate countries, in American candidate countries, that actually this is a region that can add to the security of Europe?
I fully agree with you that the world that we were living in a couple of years ago has so rapidly changed, and I would say irretrievably changed. This is the key new element when you look at the NATO Hague Summit decision commitment to 5% by 2035. Would have been unthought of a couple of years ago because everything was settled. We were sort of gliding towards the welfare state, and then there was a wake-up call in 2013-14, and then 2022 with Putin basically showing his cards and even showing them again after Alaska and after Washington. I think we need to be realistic. The attacks are going on Ukraine, and nothing has moved an inch towards some sort of concept of pursuing peace, so as to be very precise. The new alliances which are being forged by the biggest, largest, most numerous and economically very influential powers, not to mention nuclear powers, is critically important for the West. I mean, we are still in the phase after the United States presidential elections, in the phase of consolidating the transatlantic relationship, which is bumpy. Bumpy in security, bumpy in defense, bumpy in terms of multilateralism, bumpy in terms of respecting the international law, and bumpy in terms of trade relations, especially with the tariffs that are on the agenda. So the West, since we are all the West, needs a consolidation. The slower the enlargement, the more influential other actors will become in all of the countries of the Western Balkans. We are all being polite, but when you look at the harsh political reality, you have North Macedonia blocked, you have Serbia under more than 2 years of biggest and strongest and the most serious internal unrests and demonstrations at the verge of the civil war. Bosnia and Herzegovina with Dodik overstretching for years whether he will separate or not, hop, he's out. This is where we are today with Banjska that left without a serious remark or articulation back in 23 by anybody in the European Union. We pretended it didn't happen. These are the realities of where we are. So I think we should be really sober about the enlargement and the changing global context. I'm very much in favor of the enlargement. I think all the countries are doing a fair share of effort to join, but they need to stabilize politically. The numbers of political support are not enough. We also had big support before we joined. If I went now to a referendum, 50-50. 50-50. The narratives have changed. There are so many false information that is being spread around, and people, unfortunately, in the context of the technological revolution, tend to trust false information quite a bit. So it's a perennial battle for us to win the narratives, and we should also be realistic. This is part of the enlargement. The other are Ukraine and Moldova, both under active or frozen conflicts, both under war or occupation of part of their territory. This is where we are. These are the two closest to Cyprus situation that we have had, except that the ongoing Russian aggression is still there. So the topic is important, but it's so strained with all of these elements that we have to be realistic. One thing we have learned through our enlargement is we need to be very realistic.
Eddie.
Very realistic.
Oh, sorry, it's stronger than me now because he mentioned Alaska. And as I am haunted by something I told here about Putin and the time zones, it got in my mind something new about Putin's waste biological bag. You know about it, right? That wherever he goes, he has a waste biological bag to collect and bring home. And the reason why is because he collects proof that wherever he lands was historically Russia. Understand? So I want to go back 1 second to the joke, to the half joke and half truth about our 92% historically, because it's true, but in the same time, it was never our choice. So we were fully in with all empires, and the first empire that we have embraced because of our choice is European Union. And we are very devoted to it. And by the way, I don't think there is another country so far in Europe where you can have a campaign and you can run an election exactly on that, on the EU. And the reason why we won big this time, I think, was very much connected to the EU pledge and to the call for all the people to gather around the flag and bring the flag in EU. Now, I was before in another room and in another talk, and someone from Slovenia said to me, "You are doing great, but be careful for what you wish, because we are in EU and it's not going well for us." And I told them, listen, you are in such a good place in Slovenia that if we go through the list of things you have and we would wish to have, it's huge.
Are you absolutely
sure? But there is one thing in the list where we beat you, which is optimism. You are quite depressed here, you know? And, you know, because it's so perfect, it's so beautiful, and you are really scared that who touches something will do something wrong, you know? While in Albania, there are so many things we need to continue to improve and to adjust that is just the drive. And secondly, to your question about what happened in China, here comes the part that has nothing to do with our negotiations, but has to do with me as a European, free European. I believe that Europe should have been there. So I believe that Europe should be everywhere where the world meets. And Europe should give up on Europe. It's not just Europe, it was the whole collective West until a while, since the change happened in America, but should give up on trying to impose to the others its own way of living. What we need to do is to protect our way of living from the others, but not to select friends and to select whomever we want to talk with based on their ways of living. So it's because yes, and by the way, I represent a country that fully stands with Ukraine, and the only country, I believe, in Europe that since the fall of the Berlin Wall never had a visit to Russia or never had a guest from Russia. So nobody can say that I have any kind of confusion in my mind, but I believe that Europe should not wait from the other side of the ocean what's next with the peace plan. Europe is first and foremost peace is culture of peace, is peace and culture. So, of course, we have to defend ourselves. Of course, we have to improve our defense. Of course, we should not rely on others. But how comes that we don't have yet a plan? And what we wait? You know, we wait for what? For the next move. So, Viktor Orban, you know, is a very controversial figure, good friend. I appreciate a lot Antonio. I appreciate a lot Victor. I appreciate a lot of this gentleman here. And I don't base my appreciation on how much I agree or don't agree with someone, but how deep the conversation goes. And when he mentioned ceasefire some time ago, he was treated like a pest. He was treated like you know, like the waste biological bag, you know. And when suddenly someone else on the other side of the ocean mentions ceasefire, suddenly Europe discovers that there is also ceasefire. But it's too late. It's too late. Nobody is going to fall for it. Now what we are waiting? We are waiting that someone else finds something else, and then we find ourselves in front of a fait accompli, and we become isolated even more from others. And to conclude, a very dear friend of all of us, I believe, from another country out of Europe, in the Middle East, asked me, have you counted how many friends you had before the war and how many you have since the war? And this is a question that we have to make, because we don't have any reason to not be proactive with all the forces that are out there, and to not have our own, like Antonio said, very rightly so, our own deals, our own communication. And when it comes to the enlargement, it's not, you know, it's not really what enlargement is to get Montenegro in. Even if Albania gets Montenegro in, it's not enlarged. It's practically from very small to too small. So what enlargement is to get Albania in? What enlargement? Enlargement. What enlargement? We both are like, I don't know.
Our houses.
So...
get on with it.
So
the message.
But if EU enlarges with us, it gets stronger. It gets more compact. Why? Because it doesn't leave a part of the body open for viruses, for microbes, for assaults, for infections, and so on. Exactly. And this is the point. So if tomorrow things go in a different direction, this will be a wound open in the middle of Europe. While if we are in, we are simply, you know, closing a space where from a very little space it can become a big problem. And we are the only reality in the history of geography, I believe, that I'm talking wrong like an Italian.
I have to prove you wrong, see?
So we are the only reality in the history of geography who have two borders. I mean, the European Union has two borders. One outside border, like everyone else, and one inside border. And within the inside border is me and him, you know? Now, what enlargement? Close this, get rid of this inside border. Single market, like we entering in a single market will be China or Japan threatening Europe. Bring us in.
Thank you, Eddie.
And we bring some fun. We bring some fun, some optimism, some youth, some desire for life.
Okay, we got it.
Happy marriage, Prime Minister.
I'm on a mission here to prove that you are wrong, not in what you just said, but in the fact that I'm an Italian moderator and you're a Balkan panel. I'm on a mission to prove you wrong, right? And so,
prove me wrong.
As in, not on what you just said, but on the fact that we have to end on time. And so, let me end with
I can prove myself wrong all the time.
A final question to Milojko and to Robert, and it's a very short and crispy one. Tell me one thing, just one thing, which you could point to when we meet again in 1 year. Here we are in a situation in which it's not a 50-50, glass half full, half empty, let's say it's a 2/3.
No, I don't accept 50-50, so make it 70-30.
Okay, 70-30? I want it to have an 80 or 85 next year. What is the one thing that should be done, can be done, and that you will do to make sure that we get to that 80-85% by next year? Milojko.
Sorry, 80-85% of what?
Of the glass being half full. Meeting the Bled.
An attack from Russia to Montenegro will do it.
And I want it in 30 seconds.
Then we have a third world war, as Trump once said. Actually, getting Montenegro into NATO was one of his concerns in his first mandate. I'm joking. So, but it's
because he doesn't know the size of Montenegro. This is the problem.
No. He's probably very well aware of the size of Montenegro. But it's, I think the economy. Going back to the basics, guys, the economy is all, it's you know, how are we going to pay for defense? How are we going to pay for many other things? How are we going to keep the political support?
Why you don't even need defense? If you are all occupied, you are occupied.
No, hang on. We need a distinctly, I would say, different and better story on the economy by
connecting the economy and real life of the citizens with all the geostrategic approach that we need to do. Like, we need the real, the people have to see the economy improving. This is the key.
Last word.
You want a realistic answer?
Yeah, but an optimistic, realistic answer.
Okay, the optimistic is they're going to close a record-breaking number of chapters in the next 12 months. You all and they mostly. And Antonio will find a way how to reshape the decision-making process in order to bring them to the final decision on whether they can get in or not. Unfortunately, realistically, it's going to take 2 years.
Okay, I can live with that. I can live with that. And being just, Eddie, 10 seconds late, I think that Ali will be back here to tell us what we have to do. Please join me in thanking this absolutely fantastic panel.
Thank you.
You see how much he misses me. Look.
I do miss you, Prime Minister.
Yeah,
it's always good to see you. Next year, perhaps we'll be back on stage together, Prime Ministers, Commissioners. First of all, thank you so much for a very thoughtful and very thought-provoking discussion. Hopefully, at the very latest, in 2 years of time, we'll have these two gentlemen here as full-fledged members of the European Union. Thank you, Natalie, for your moderation, for finishing on time. Ladies and gentlemen, before